Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk, coming to you from an undisclosed rehab as I detox from matzah. Oops, just kidding. Coming to you from Nassau Community College at 90.3 WHBC, also streaming on nccradio.org. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. Of course, this program is repeated Sundays at 11 p.m. So hi there, my name is Rabbi Pearl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This all depends on when you are listening or joining us and watching us. Gewalt! You can actually see us right now on Facebook Live at WHBC or on my own page at facebook.com, Anshel Pearl. And if you post your comments, I will recognize you, or your questions. We will try our best to address everybody. So hello on the radio! Hello, everyone online, and hello to the world. And, of course, being in a rehab means I've admitted my powerlessness over the addiction of eating so much matzah, shmura matzah, for the last 8 days. So I decided to go into rehab, and here I am, trying my best to decide to turn over my control to the higher power and to learn the lessons of what I was doing with this matzah for the last 8 days. Oy, gewalt. If I put my ear to the right, matzah comes out of the right ear. If I put it to the left, more matzah comes out. I'm telling you. So anyway, I want to say welcome, and I want to take this opportunity, really, to wish each and every one of you and your children and your grandchildren and your friends and your neighbors a very happy post-Passover. In fact, this program I'm calling the PPS program, Passover Syndrome. And I want to wish everybody moving forward a blessed spring and summer ahead of us. And I want you to know, whether you like it or not, to me it's an honor to have each and every one of you join me each and every week on our weekly radio and Facebook community gatherings here. So thank you so much again. And I want to say hello to Holly Feynman Lapinel. Thank you so much. And thank you for your blessings. So, one of the most powerful aspects of Passover moving forward is the holiday of Passover always falls out in the spring. The Torah uses the word Chodesh Aviv, the month of spring. So spring, not only does it mean the season, but also spring forward, to leave one's boundaries, which is really what Passover is all about. Leaving the boundaries, the constrictions, whether in a historical sense or even in a personal sense. And it brings each and every one of us the opportunity for renewal and inspiration that it provides to change, to broaden our lives. And I want to say good morning again to all those listening and watching. And Matan Zev is actually, Golan Matan Zev is listening as well. I'm telling you, this program is a family program. It's not just for the older people or for the mature people. It's for everybody out there. All ages can listen in over here, and really I appreciate that. So, being the spring season, I thought I would discuss today the concept of change of outlook, and how we could implement into our lives a more positive outlook in life. See, positive change is not easy. To be able to accomplish that, it requires faith and optimism. And it is only possible if a person is consistent in their positive and upbeat perspective. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about today. I'm going to bring you back to a very, very famous story in the Tanakh. It's the story of a boy amazingly resurrected. It's Elisha's miracle. And I know that those listening are well acquainted with this amazing story. Let's begin with one of the most moving stories in the books of the prophets. In the second book of Kings, we're told that there was once a woman who lived in the town of Shunam. Whenever the prophet Elisha passed through Shunam, she would always invite him to come to dinner with her and her husband. She could sense that there was something special about Elisha, and she told her husband, he's a holy man, and we need to take care of him. So she made for him a guest quarters on the top of a house. So when this prophet Elisha would come by, he could stay there whenever he was in town. Of course, she could have kept inviting him to dinner, and that would have been very kind enough. She could have rented him a one-room Airbnb. That would have been very nice. Or he could have come sofa surfing and putting his sleeping bag on their couch. No, that's not the way she took care of him. Nothing was too good for Elisha in this person's mind. This lady went to great lengths to take care of Elisha when she offered something permanent for him and built him this little room up there in the attic, and she built it with great love and with great thought. So one day, Elisha wanted to repay her for her kindness. Right? And he said, look, you've gone to no end. All this trouble for me, making this special apartment. What can I do for you? And she said, nothing, Elisha. My husband and I are doing just fine. Elisha says, do you want me to put in a good word for you with the government? I've got connections. I know the king. I know the minister. Again, she said, no, I don't need nothing. She was from Brooklyn. But Elisha was determined to show his gratitude, especially since she and her husband had never asked for anything. So Elisha the prophet turns to his assistant Gehazi and says, what can I do for her? She's been so kind. Gehazi thought for a moment and said, the only thing I can think of, she was never blessed with children. A child would be a great gift. So Elisha turns to Gehazi, his assistant, and says, call her. When she comes, Elisha says, here's my blessing. By this time next year, you're going to be holding a newborn son in your hands. She was overjoyed. That had long since been her dream. It seemed too good to be true, an impossible wish. But next year, guess what? Just as the prophet told her, she gave birth to a healthy son. So far, the story is exactly what you would expect from the prophets, from the scriptures, isn't it? The prophet's words comes true, faith in God is strengthened, virtue is rewarded. But here, dear friends, hang in, everybody. Sit back, because the story does not end there. When the boy was around 7 years old, he was out in the field playing. The sun beat down on him with fierce intensity, and he got dehydrated, and his head began to hurt very badly. He called out to his father, and he said the words, Reishi, Reishi, my head hurts, my head hurts. The father quickly had him carried home, where his condition deteriorated. A few hours later, he died in his mother's arms. You can imagine how this mother felt. After waiting for a son for so long, and finally being blessed in that way, her heart was shattered, and she was devastated beyond words. She quickly carried her son to Elisha's room and placed him on Elisha's bed, remember, in that special apartment that she'd built for this prophet. For most people, this would mark the end of the story, but not for this lady. She asked her assistant for a donkey, and she rushed out to seek the prophet Elisha. Her husband, unaware that their beloved boy had died, saw her hurrying out and said, "Why are you going to see the prophet? Is everything all right?" And she answered, "Shalom, all is going well." It was outstanding. It was astounding that she would answer this way. She knew her child was dead. Why did she not, only hide this? Not only did she hide it from her husband, but in fact tell him that all was well. Shalom, all is going well. Why the pretense that everything was fine in the middle of such a great tragedy? As she neared Elisha's house, the prophet noticed her approaching. She was now coming from the distance and saw that she was distressed. So he tells his assistant, Gehazi, run outside and ask her 3 simple questions. Are you all right? Is your husband all right? Is the boy all right? Gehazi runs to meet the woman, stops and says, Elisha's concerned. Like, look, why are you coming unexpectedly in such a hurry? And he proceeds to say, is everything all right with you? Is everything all right with your husband? Is everything all right with your child? Again, she replied the same words that she replied to her husband. And she said, Shalom, all is well. Again, what could she possibly have meant? She had just suffered the greatest catastrophe that could befall a family, God forbid. Yet she tells Gehazi that all is well when he explicitly asked if everything was healthy, if everything was good. Clearly, something powerful was shaping her responses, not only to this assistant, but to her husband, and caused her to hold back. Now, what was it? Was it delusion? Was it denial? It was neither of these, because when she did reach Elisha, she told him the son he had promised and had given to her had died. She poured out her heart, saying, I did not ask you for a child. You insisted on giving me this blessing. You are a man of God. This is your responsibility. Elisha immediately went back to the room where the child was, prayed for the boy, and he came back to life. You can check it up in the book of Kings. What's the moral of the story? Why am I sharing this with you today? Before I do, I want to say welcome to everybody listening. I want to say hello to Jeffrey Hirsch. I want to say hello to Linda Zellickson. I want to say hello to Jean Brandenstein. So, what's the story? What is it all about? It's a spectacular miracle. There's no doubt about it. The kid lived. He was resurrected. But what's the message? What's going on here? What's going on? Are we to understand the Torah is telling us the miracles happen? We know that already. Why did she wait until she could see Elisha's face when she became face to face to tell him what had happened? Right? All along she was saying, Shalom, everything is good, everything is good. And now, only when she was in front of him, Elisha, did she spill the beans. Talking about spilling the beans, I want to say hello to my good friend Label Swenson. May God bless you, Larry. Looking forward to seeing you and wish you long life personally and giving you a hug of life and blessings. As many of you may know, I wanted to share with you that dear Larry lost his dear wife just recently, and Kim, who's at my great engineer, knows Larry very well and sends her condolences. Dear friends, so I want to let you know that Jeannie Marie has also joined us. Unbelievable. I tell you, our audience now is at least up to 16 people. 16. Unbelievable. I mean, we're beating all records between the 8 and 9 on a Sunday morning. There's no other talk show like this that has as little people as my... I mean, not everybody can do that. People have thousands. They tell me hundreds of thousands of people. I'm happy with my 16 people. I'd like to go up to... Let me know you're a new listener today. Let's make it up to 18. 18 is high. I mean, let's go. High, baby. Let's bring it up to 18. Tell me... Post your name or a name on where you're watching on Facebook. Let us know you've joined us, and I really want to bring up my numbers today. I'm 16. I want to bring it up to 18. That's all I'm asking. I'm pleading. This is an appeal, baby. I'm asking for 2 more listeners, 2 more watchers or listeners, whatever it may be. So let's go back to our program over here. If God was just simply telling us a miracle, come on, we know about this. God makes miracles. And also, why did she wait until she could see Elisha face to face to tell him what was happening? You see, the key to understanding this story lies in the strange reply that she gave her husband and this Gehazi. Remember, when both of them asked her, how is everything? What was her response to both her husband and the assistant of the prophet? She said, Shalom, all is well. What? She's got a baby, a young child lying upstairs dead, and all she responds to her own husband, all is good? All is well? The answer to why she answered this way is that far from being deluded or in denial, this grieving mother was filled with hope, with faith, with the conviction that Elisha would bring back her child. But she sensed that if she had first told the truth to the others, they would have convinced her that all was lost, that their child was gone forever, and there was no point in trying. But she knew that if God could miraculously bring this baby into her life, he could miraculously revive him as well. It's hard to imagine having that kind of hope. But that she did. She knew she needed to hold on to it. She couldn't let it be taken from her, even by people who meant well. If she didn't cling to it, her child would be gone forever. So, she had declared to everyone who asked, "Shalom, all is well." Such was her confidence in God's goodness that not one bad word escaped from her. And in the end, her son was restored to life only because of that unwavering optimism and faith. Without it, if she had just let the apparent end become the end of the story, everything would have ended differently. So this biblical story is not only about a woman who lived in Shunem more than two millennia ago. It is an eternal truth about each of us. We may have a dream. We may spend years cultivating and nurturing that dream, but we do not realize it. We could be taken away, and then, unexpectedly, the dream dies. We all face unexpected challenges, family issues, a personal failure, a layoff, an accident, God forbid, an addiction, a sickness, money worries, something terrible and even unspeakable that seems to come from nowhere to destroy what we have thought we would have forever. At such times, when our usual words and worlds have fallen into disarray and unpredictability, when we feel that we are crawling on the ground in utter misery, unsure which way to turn, let me tell you, dear friends, it's easy to feel helpless and give in to despair. But rather than wallow in self-pity, we should instead have faith in the future and in God, just as this woman of Shunem. We should do everything in our power to build up, not to give up. In the merit of faith alone, miracles occur. God can resurrect our dead dreams. He can resurrect a dead marriage. He can resurrect declining health or a business that's failing. When we all have faith in God, and when you get up and try again despite everything, despite the fact that raising yourself feels impossible, that is when each of us, actually see all things are possible. God can turn the situation around. He can open up new doors of opportunity, even though you can't even see them. So, dear friends, don't let a negative mindset stop what God wants to do. We not only have to think positively, we have to speak positively as well. Few things in life are more powerful than a positive perspective because it affects everything we do. Let's take a closer look at how we accomplish this. And before I do that, I want to let you know that Patty Fuchs and Rosemary Hoffman are joining us as well. Fantastic, fantastic. Sharon Jacobs, I guess we've made it up to our 16. I'm still waiting for 2 more new people to let me know that I have my 18, my high people listening this day. So if you're joining us for the first time or have never posted on our Facebook, just post it. Say something. Let me know. Give me a break. I want to know if there's 18 people listening here today. So let's take a look at how we can accomplish this positive outlook. You remember when the woman arrived at Elisha's home? What did Elisha ask his assistant Gehazi to ask? he said to her, Elisha says to him, go and ask her 3 questions. Hashalom lach, is it all well with you? Hashalom le'ishech, is all well with your husband? Hashalom la'yoled, is all well with your son? Wow, we have a new person, John Allen. Unbelievable, John Allen. I'm up to 17. I mean, there's people are dancing in the. I've got to get Kim. Please allow me to be in the bigger studio. I need more space to dance. I'm up to 17 people. I need one more. John Allen, man, you take the cake. But I still need one more person. Thank you so much. Thank you. So remember, he asked his student to ask the lady 3 things. Are you okay? Is your husband okay? And is the child? Hashalom la'yoled, is all well with your son? Let's consider these 3 questions. 3 questions. First, hang in with me, my dear friends, because we're going to find out that 3 questions he asked her, that he asked his student to ask her, and her response to him. And only later on did she really spill the beans when she met him face to face, are extremely important to each and every one of us. Let's consider these 3 questions. The first was, Hashalom lach, is all well with you? This question doesn't simply mean, what is your current state of being? On a deeper level, it means, Hashalom lach, do you have a positive outlook? Do you have an optimistic perspective? Or are you someone who sees things in a negative light? Are things not only well with you, but well for you? This is one of the most consequential questions we can ever ask ourselves, because our perceptions, to a larger extent, determine our reality. Let me explain what I mean when I say perspective determines reality. Imagine renting a wooden cabin in a forest for your honeymoon. The place is charming. At dawn, however, a woodpecker starts its loud rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat pounding on the roof. The noise is so loud you can't sleep. It goes on for hours. It happens at dawn, the second morning, and again the 3rd morning. What do? Most people would conclude that the woodpecker ruined their honeymoon and that the cabin experience was, forget about it, was a failure. A risk that didn't work out. We'll go to Hawaii next year, you might think. This woodpecker incident actually happened to a couple named Gracie and Walter Lantz. It happened on their honeymoon. Eitan Kelshevsky remembers them very well. However, instead of deciding that the cabin was a failure, they changed their thinking and asked, what if it's a success? What if the woodpecker is an opportunity, a possibility? What positive can we take from this situation? By the time they had returned from the honeymoon, they had found what they were looking for, or rather, they had created it. And they had also found a route to huge commercial success. They created the cartoon character called Woody Woodpecker. Walter was the illustrator. Gracie was the voice. Many years later, when interviewed on their 50th wedding anniversary, Gracie said, "It was the best thing that ever happened to us." But friends, what is the objective truth? Was the cabin experience bad? The answer is, it depends on who's in the cabin. If Gracie and Walter decided their honeymoon was a failure, it would have been a failure. But because they perceived it as a success, it became a success. We react to events as we perceive them, not as they are in themselves. If we learn to see things positively, We can alter our emotional reactions and dramatically increase the scope of our happiness. I have to interrupt myself because Betty Collins is a new listener, and she posted on my Facebook page, Mazel Tov to John Allen. I see the telephones are ringing all over the place over here. Can you see this, Kim? The telephone, people are calling. I don't know what's going on. Am I allowed to have more than 18 people listening? This is historical for my program, that in one program, I go up with 2 people. First it was 16, now we're 18. Betty, Yeshakaya, thank you so much, Betty, and to you, John Allen. And to Sharon Jacobs, and to Gina Marie, and Gina Brandis. To the whole group. I'm so excited. Please open up, put on the air conditioning. It's getting too hot for me over here. So, dear friends, how you look at things. See, I thought positive. I knew I could make it to 18, and I made it to 18. Do you think I could ask for 20? I don't know. That might be pushing it, but I think I'm going to go for it. I don't care. I'm going for broke here. I am thinking positive. I can make it up to 20. 2 more new listeners. All I want is 2 more. Just put your name up on the on my Facebook page or on WHBC's Facebook page, and I will announce you. And my friends, have you ever seen a rabbi at 8:27 on a Sunday morning dance in a studio? You shouldn't know from it. It's unbelievable. It's a horrible sight, but make me happy. Make me happy, please. I want to start the week. I have a positive outlook today. I'm talking about the way you look at things, the way it happens. So often in life, it's not about changing jobs or changing houses or changing spouses or changing cabins. That's not necessary for the path to happiness. Running from an issue with physical steps is not the answer. It's all about changing our mindset. Changing our mindset. Hashalom lach was the word. The prophets asked her, Hashalom lach, are you in peace? Do you have a positive outlook? This is what Elisha the prophet asked the woman. And she replied, Shalom, I have an optimistic view. My eyes are forward focused. Let me tell you, there are 32 published volumes of the personal correspondence of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The collection is fascinating to read because it includes letters to an extraordinary assortment of personalities, writers, artists, philosophers, scientists, rabbis, atheists, athletes, presidents. The totality of the collection is a glimpse into the expansive nature of one of the great Jewish minds in modern times. When people wrote to the Rebbe about their struggles and their shattered dreams, he would give each of them specific and practical advice. But I noticed one phrase appeared more than any other in these letters, and it's the following words: Trach gut wird sein gut. Think good and it will be good. Few things in life are more powerful than a positive perspective. It is the foundation for a revolution in how we engage with the world. This doesn't mean that we have to change our thinking so much that we distort reality or see the world through fantasy-tinted glasses. If, God forbid, tragedy strikes, do we tell ourselves, hey, this is great, what a positive development? Of course not. When we say we can create our own reality, it does not mean we deny or twist events in some sort of an absurd manner. Rather, we choose the most positive path within the spectrum of responsible possible reactions. We are realists, but with our realists comes our optimists. Recent developments in cognitive psychology illustrate the power of a positive perspective. There's a Dr. Martin Seligman. He wrote a book called Learned Optimism. He is one of the founders of the field of cognitive psychology. Describes a remarkable experiment observation about the power of optimism. recognizing that out of all professional disciplines, the field of sales requires an extraordinary degree of willingness to overcome rejection, Seligman met with the executives of Metropolitan Life. As you may know, it's one of the leading insurance companies in America. At the time, Metropolitan Life administered a standardized test to anyone who applied for sales jobs. The test focused on intelligence and on displaying an inherent aptitude for salesmanship, and rejected those applicants with low scores. Dr. Seligman suggested, however, that a second series of tests be administered, one geared towards people's attitudes about rejection. This test was not about intellectual ability, but rather whether one approached rejection as permanent or a temporary and limited. It wasn't a case of how they did under ideal conditions, but how they would respond to adversity. He further proposed that a team of salesmen who had failed the original intelligent tests, but who registered as being optimistic, should be formed in parallel with the group hired based on the conventional method. Their performance would be tracked for a period of time. The results, my friends, were striking. The optimist, who had initially been rejected, outsold the pessimist in the regular force by 21% during the first year. And in the second year, their advantage increased to 57%. Not only were the optimists better salesmen initially, but their performance also kept improving over the wiser, the more intelligent pessimists. The reason, the doctor explains, is that while intelligence should initially be at least as important as persistence and optimism, over time, as the no incidences, the rejections accumulate and gather, persistence becomes the decisive factor. My friends, optimism works. Optimism works. Seligman's crucial finding was that optimism and pessimism were not genetically determined. It's up to each of us how we choose to view reality. And indeed, today, cognitive therapy is one of the most successful of therapeutic methods. What makes this approach refreshing is that since the time of Freud, psychotherapy has been focusing on the negative aspects of the human psyche, on the powerful of the irrational feelings and the subconscious demons that drive us. Depression, anxiety, neurosis, psychosis, charosis, all Jewish delicacies. Cognitive therapy is refreshing because it restores power to the individual. It places you in the driving seat, and it says you are in the control of your actions. No circumstances outside of you, no drive within us can drive us from our sovereign power to determine how to think. The woman from Shunem, back to our biblical story, refused to let the world diminish her belief in miracles. And as a result, guess what? Miracles happened. Miracles occurred. Her child came back to life. Let's put it another way. What determines the direction of a ship at sea? Is it the direction of the wind or the set of the sails? The sails determine the direction. No matter what direction the wind is blowing, you can sail in the direction you wish. The wind carries one ship east and another west according to the way that you set your sails. It is not the wind, but how you catch it. Not the storm, but how you respond to it. The sea is your life, and you are the captain. The sails are your thoughts. Your thoughts, positive or negative, really do change the direction of your life. You are, we are, each of us are the captain of our destinies. So, Hashalom Lach was the word. Are you at peace? Are you steering your ship happily? Are you sailing through life optimistically? Rabbi Dr. Abraham Twersky, of blessed memory, tells a story of his childhood during the World War II. A family close to his own received the shocking news that their son was missing in action. The family was devastated and grieving. Rabbi Twersky's father tried to keep their hopes up, reiterating frequently that MIA does not mean dead, and that your son might be a prisoner of war and still alive somewhere, still unharmed. Every week, Twersky's father visited the family, trying to instill hope. He would enter their home, smiling and exuding confidence. He would also say with great certainty that they would see their son alive and well. And sure enough, after the VE Day, the family was blessed with the news that their son had been a POW and was now well on his way home to rejoin with the family. When the soldier returned to his army base, he found a stack of some 100 letters that had accumulated in his absence. These had all come from Dr. Twersky's father, who had written to the missing soldier once a week for the entire 2 years the man had been in captivity. Rabbi Twersky then related that he had known exactly when his father had sat down and written these letters because he had been there watching him writing them down. His father had penned these letters each week just before visiting the missing boy's family. Writing the letters had reinforced his father's own belief and strengthened his hope that the young man was indeed still alive. Since he punched up his own attitude, he could give hope to the boy's family. He had physically willed himself to hope for the best. Of course, Rabbi Twersky's father had always feared the worst, but fear is destructive and pessimism pinches the soul. So he combated it with the hope inherent in the writing of these letters. He continued to combat fear by communicating his confidence to the family. Sending the letters out was his way of keeping hope alive. Keep hope alive. Dr. Rabbi Twersky concluded that his father's visits were the highlight of this family's week. His father brought them comfort and hope. Indeed, he did not just deliver his own hope and leave it there with them, but he also taught them to have hope too, to know how to produce hope for themselves. It was by virtue of these optimistic acts that the family survived their 2-year ordeal. And you see, even when we are not feeling optimistic, we are in control. We can do acts that raise our mood to help ourselves and others. To be an optimist does not mean that you don't see the gathering storm. It means that you use your thoughts as sails to pass through life's challenging waves and navigate the tides of circumstances to happy ports. You take decisions that will steer you in the right direction for the best outcome. So today, let's ask ourselves, Hashalom Lach? Are we sailing through life in the right direction with an upbeat perspective? And just as importantly, are we uplifting others around us? I want to say good morning to Jack Klein. Jack Klein, good morning. Linda Zellickson, Jonathan Wolf. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's go on to the next question. Remember again, remind ourselves, the prophet Elisha sends his assistant out and he asks the lady who had come, Hashalom Lach. And then the second question was, Hashalom Leishach. Do you see your spouse in a good light? The second question. This brings us to the second question that Elisha directed to the woman. Hashalom Leishach. How is your husband doing? Today we ask ourselves the same question. How is your husband? How is your wife? Do you see your spouse in a good light? Do you look at what is whole, or do you obsess about what you think is missing, about their faults? What lenses do we wear when we look at the people most precious to us? Every time a young man brought home a prospective wife, his mother would criticize her terribly. The girl was never good enough for her son. The mother always found some many character flaws. Finally, the young man asked his psychology professor for advice. The professor says, "Find someone just like your mother. Then you'll see a different response." So he spent months searching and finally found someone who looked like his mother. He even had the same mannerism as her, a virtual clone, and he took her home. The next week, the professor saw the young man and asked, "How did it go with his mother?" "It was great," the young man replied. "My mother loved her, and my father couldn't stand her." Relationships are challenging. Every couple has disagreements, stylistic differences, and valued conflicts. All of these occur in the normal course of close relationships. Additionally, to be a husband, to be a wife, is inevitably to be aware of many faults and weaknesses in your spouse. You see them with a microscope. That being the case, to be a good husband or wife is also to see the best in your partner and to try to bring out the best in them, to cherish them as they are, and enjoy the blessings you have together. There's a certain Jeffrey Kimball, is a philanthropist who helped build the Chabad Community Center in Springfield, Massachusetts. One summer morning, he stopped by the center together with his wife and young daughter. To his dismay, the front lawn was unkept. The grass had not been mowed, and the flowers were covered with weeds. Jeffrey, who loved and appreciated a beautiful garden, had some words with the rabbi. Jeffrey's daughter asked her mother, why is Dad yelling at the rabbi? So the mother artfully explained, "Did you see the flowers in front of the center?" And the daughter said, "Yes." The mother said, "Do you see the weeds?" The daughter said, "Yes." Well, the mother said, "The problem is, the rabbi only sees the flowers." How do you choose to live? We can always find the weeds, or we can focus on the flowers. Hashalom le'ishech. Do you rejoice over blessing the flowers? Do you focus on the strengths, or are we preoccupied with the flaws? You think about this. A Jewish wedding ends up with the breaking of a glass cup, after which everybody screams out, "Mazel tov, mazel tov!" And of course the caterer is running around trying to collect his check. This tradition reminds us that even at the peak of our joy, we remember all the broken hearts that still exist in the world. We remember the Jerusalem and the Holy Land that still needs redemption. And we pray for the restoration of all that has been shattered. This we remember with the breaking of the glass. But why do we shout Mazel Tov? What is it about breaking a glass that prompts an outcry of good luck? Actually, we're telling the bride that while right now the groom appears perfect, in the years ahead, he will break a thing or two. He may do something to upset her. Likewise, we're telling the groom, at this moment, the bride appears so regal and radiant, but during your lives together, she may break a thing or two. She may disappoint you. You might even feel shattered yourself. But what should you do when your spouse breaks something? Shout Mazel Tov! If you can laugh together through the breakage of little things, if you learn to see things in a positive way when the woodpeckers attack, thus making sure that they don't lead to the breaking of the bigger things, then your lives will be filled with mazel and bracha and with joy. Hashalom le'ishech. Do you look at what's broken and get angry, or do you shout Mazel Tov? Do you celebrate all the wonderful things that you lived through together with your spouse? Weeds or flowers, faults and omissions or good qualities, misery or happiness, it's really up to us individually. Let's go on to the third question. Hashalom la'yaled. The third question was, remember the final question of the prophet Elisha directed to the woman? Hashalom la'yaled. How is your child? We can ask ourselves the same question. Do we focus on our child's or grandchild's strengths, or on their floors? Do you help to build their self-esteem? Do you instill in them Jewish pride? Or do you criticize too much? Is their best always wonderful or never quite good enough? Do you see 89% they scored in the test at school, or only the 11% that they failed? Hashalom Yeled. How do you see your child? This in turn will affect how they see the world and themselves, and how they ultimately treat their own children and their children too. Finish this sentence. I caught my child doing something ... You probably finished that sentence with wrong. Yes, we catch our children doing wrong, and we, reprimand them for it. And at times it is necessary. But do we catch them, doing something right and praise them for that? Obviously, not often enough. When little David throws his jacket on the floor, we say, "Pick up that jacket off the floor and hang it up where it belongs. How many times have I told you to pick up your things?" But there are many things that our children do every day that are right. So make sure to catch your child doing something good. Say, "David, I saw you help your sister put on her jacket. That's a mitzvah." Catch your child doing something positive and several times a day and acknowledge it, praise it, nurture it. "Wow, you said the Shema before going to bed so beautifully last night." Describe the behavior or the mitzvah you want from your child. It will enhance your relationship with your children as well as lift up their self-esteem. They will stand a little taller and make an effort to get caught, doing more mitzvahs in the future. We should be just as eagle-eyed to see virtue as vice. Someone once asked, why do grandparents and grandchildren get along so well? Think about it. Why do grandchildren and grandparents get on together so well? The answer is because they have a common enemy. Yes, children are difficult, but each child is a gift from God. Each is endowed with unique character traits and talents, and each child has to be made to feel special. The children who have never reminded why they are special are perpetually unhappy, pessimistic, and become such down kind of adults. The encouragement and the recognition we give our children will determine how happy and successfully they live the rest of their lives. So when we focus on our child's strengths, the results are rewarding, both for children and for those who raise them, just as the following study reveals. The psychologist David Scott Yeager, a good friend of Jonathan Wolff, this psychologist and his colleagues assigned 44 seventh grade students to write an essay about a personal hero. All the papers were collected, and the teacher then marked up the essays, providing written feedback. At this point, the researchers randomly divided them into two piles. For the essays in the first pile, they appended a generic note in the teacher's handwriting that just said, "I'm giving you these comments so that you'll have feedback on your paper." The essays in the second pile got a note reflecting what the researchers called wise criticism. It said, "I'm giving you these comments because I have very high expectations and I know you can reach them." After the papers were returned, the students had the option of revising and resubmitting their papers for a chance to earn a better grade. What was the result? Hold on to your shirts. 40% of the students who got the generic note chose to revise. 80% of those who received wise criticism revised their papers, and in editing their papers, they made more than twice as many corrections. Those children reached higher and achieved more. What makes the second note so powerful is that it rewires the way students process criticism. When they get their papers marked full of corrections and suggestions, the natural reaction might be to be on the defensiveness or even mistrust. The teacher hates me, he doesn't like me, she doesn't like me. We've all been there. But the wise criticism note carries a different message. It says, I know you're capable of great things if you just put in your work. The marked up essay is not a personal judgment. It's a push towards excellence. It aligns the student and the professor as pulling in the same direction. There's a Yiddish phrase that some parents use with their children when they do something wrong. It says, es passt nicht. It means this does not become you, or this doesn't fit who you are. These three simple words speak volumes. The child is not being told that he or she is bad. On the contrary, they're being told that they are so good. They shouldn't be doing this act that is beneath them. Es passt nicht means that they are just too good for that sort of thing. This is the diametric opposite of an insult. Instead of the emphasis being placed on the wrong behavior, it is placed on the great potential the child has. He or she is above such behavior. Es passt nicht. This is what the researchers call wise criticism. I'm giving you these comments because I have very high expectations and know you can reach them. Inherent within the rebuke was the greatest compliment. Being as you are a person of excellence, this is simply incompatible, out of character for you. Each child is precious, and when we focus on their potential and emphasize the positive, we push them towards excellence. Hashalom layeled. We must be optimistic parents to focus on the joys, not the hassles, on the love, and not the disappointments, but on the good deeds, not the bad ones. Especially with our children, we need to see the flowers, not the weeds. Every time you appreciate your child, every time you love something about him or her, you're giving them the clear message they are good and valued. Both of them, he or she, will grow accordingly. Friends, every day, if we listen, we are asked these three questions. Every day, these questions reverberate in our minds. Hashalom lach, is all well with you? Hashalom le'ishech, is all well with your spouse? Hashalom layaled, is all well with your children? May it be where we will be able to answer all these questions in the affirmative, Hashalom lach. Yes, we will cultivate a positive perspective on life, and we will find the blessings and nurture them in ourselves, our spouses, and in our children. While most of the people I encountered during the year, vacillate between all kinds of perspectives, I share this with you today and appreciate the opportunity to share with you and recognize all the wonderful people listening to us and watching us and commenting on our Facebook pages. One of the things that came to mind during this past Pesach as I come out of it, as I joked earlier on that I'm now in detox from the matzah, but in truth, the matzah taste or the lessons of this year's Passover are very, very meaningful to me. I'm not sure if you remember, but just a couple of years ago, so many of us, including myself, we were totally separated from our children and grandchildren for Passover because of the COVID. This one couldn't travel, this wasn't allowed to travel, this wasn't well enough, and we couldn't go. And I remember sitting all by myself with my dear wife Bluma, and we sat at our home, and we had, for the first time in our lives, just the two of us. We didn't have a public Seder, there was no community coming together. And this year, it dawned on me again, or came to mind, the appreciation that we're back in business. All of us, all of you, all of us, We were able to have friends. We were able to be with our grandchildren. We were able to have a community Seder. We were able to share with the community. We were able to help fund many people who fall between the cracks. And I want to say thank you to all those who donated to our campaign, so that food and matzah and connections and abilities to be at a Seder were taken care of. Thank you for that. And that is something we talk about, appreciation of life and looking at things in a positive manner. And perhaps that's one of the things that I want to share with you. Let's go into this new spring period and into the summer with God's help with an attitude of positivity, of seeing things in a positive manner and doing everything we can. A lot of people, when after the holiday, after the Passover, they everyone's giving reports about the maror, the bitterness of their horseradish, and many times we confuse the eating of the maror, the bitter herbs on Passover, with being bitter people about Passover. Some people complaining, I have to host a family. Others are negative about having to go to a family, while others are even there complaining about how much work it takes to pack and go to a hotel for a Passover. How quickly we all forget. How quickly we all forget of the kind of situation we were just a few years ago, a couple of years ago, when we were all by ourselves and really felt very lonely at that time. So, if you think about it, the major theme of Passover is really Thanksgiving. It's all about Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving for the past redemptions and overcoming all kinds of challenges. It's really more or less a holiday. The actual Haggadah, the majority part of the Haggadah, is really, that we sit down and talk, is really about Thanksgiving. And, we give thanks for 4 instances in which a person should sit up and think about it. When we've traveled overseas, a person travels over the water, there's a blessing to be made in the synagogue called benching goimel. When we've traveled through the desert, and when we've been released from prison, and when we're being cured from an illness. In many ways, the whole experience of coming out of Egypt, which is the whole historical side of Passover and Pesach, reflects all of them. There was illness, there was imprisonment, in desert, and all kinds of things. And therefore, see, as we come away from the holiday of Passover, see that important aspect of it, of literally giving thanks, and to be able to thanks and give thanks and publicly. And interesting, when a person has gone through one of these experiences of any kind and publicly thanks God publicly, right? Because in the Jewish tradition, if a person has overcome an illness and crossed over the seas, they come to the synagogue and make a blessing. Now, why should one individual's good fortune be publicized? It's yours and forget about it. Why do we have to come to the synagogue or tell people about it or make a kiddush or do something special? Because the important is, even a person who didn't have these problems should also, if a person, thank God, doesn't have any illnesses or has crossed over the same highway and wasn't run over, God forbid, that's also, we should appreciate that every single moment, even when things are going absolutely well and good, are also a blessing as well, an important part of our Thanksgiving coming out of Passover. This is your host, Rabbi Pearl. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful day, wonderful program, wonderful to see everybody. Thank you for uplifting our presence with so many people listening and watching. Have a wonderful week and stay well. Thank you again.